This will be our NuPastel drawing on toned paper of fabric. So here I am just gesturing in the fabric that I'm working from. You will not be drawing this fabric. You have your own reference to work from. This just happens to be the one I'm going to demonstrate on. And I'm not going to do a full drawing here. I'm going to lay it in and get started on the process just so you can see how it should come together. You can see I kept things loose and I'm working just with the tension points and the flow of the fabric, the folds and the rolls, thinking about the fabric edge and all of that. There's fairly even spacing of these stripes all the way up that pipe fold, so I'm gonna use the width of my stick. It's important on the edge here not to just butt it straight into the edge. It has a bit of, it's wrapping around, so I'm looking for any excuse I can to have it wrap around. If I just go with a straight T, it's gonna flatten things out. Same on this edge, I'm gonna dress this edge up. Give it a little bit of curl. This area is lighter in my reference image, so I'm going to hold off on that one for now. This offset is going to be very important, so these stripes are offset rather harshly. Right now out in this area, I'm just going to pick one to start and grow from there, and I'm going to use the spacing of these as an example of what to do out here. I may not be perfectly dead on with what I'm drawing, but I just need it to be consistent. Okay, so this is the rough situation of what my stripes are doing. Now it's a project of going through and smoothing this out. Right now it's really rough with lines and just a basic fill in of value. What I'm gonna do is aim to smooth things out. And I'm gonna do a couple of things when I do that because I'm using the sticks. I'm going to smooth things out. I tend to use my hand. You can see it's pretty dusty. You could use a paper towel if you like, but I would encourage you to kind of smear things around. This stuff really starts to work its way into the paper once you smear it. The color gets a little more vibrant, and then you can use a combination of your eraser and the white stick to bring back information in the white stripes, and then use more of this dark stick to find the dark spots in the dark stripes. My overarching principle here is going to be if it's behind, then it gets darker information. So this whole wrinkle here is tucked behind these two folds in front. So that's all going to be darker than this stuff. So this stripe here is going to be darker than this stripe here. This stripe is going to be lighter as it comes closer to me. So I'm not really worried about light and shadow necessarily, like all parts of light and shadow. I'm just prioritizing the stuff that's coming out. It gets a lighter value. The stuff that's behind gets a darker value. And that's relative, so the dark blue goes even darker when it's behind, wrapping behind. The white goes even lighter when it's coming towards me. It also goes darker as it's going behind. The triangle here is the back side of the fabric showing, so it doesn't have as dark of stripes, I noticed in my reference, and so I'm gonna make sure that shows up as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now I can't just leave it like this. This is still a mess. What I want to do is go through and eliminate lines. So these border lines that I see, I'm getting rid of them, and I'm favoring instead a border between light and shadow. So I'm going to darken the stripes where appropriate. I'm going to lighten the stripes where appropriate. I'm going to swipe in white stick where it's appropriate. My aim here is to disguise the lines. I just want to add stick, maybe smear a little bit. If you have a blending stump, you could use that. This is what those look like. Because I'm using this pastel, I can move it around a decent amount with my finger. I can erase it pretty well also. I drop my stick all the time. I notice there's dark right here. This fabric is in front, this fabric's behind, so I'm gonna feel comfortable darkening this. You can see the clarity starting to come here. This stuff is still quite messy, but if I keep working it, it will get to this point. The trick is not to give up too soon. This fold goes behind that fold, so I'm going to darken this. This fold starts to wrap around, so I'm kind of darkening it, but I think I'm going to leave it there because there's some real dark stuff down. This whole patch here is going to be extra dark. I'm focusing on this border edge here too. I want there to be a nice distinct border, a sharp edge we will call it, or a hard edge, where those stripes are offset by that fold being really drastic. A little bit of darkening in this area that tucks in. It doesn't go behind really, but it kind of goes back away from me. I'm going to darken that just a little bit. All right, these stripes are coming along okay, but this one gets a little bit weird, so I'm just going to shape this a little bit. I'm going to use my eraser. Again, I'm on gray paper, so I still haven't played my light hand yet. I just want the shape of this one to be a little bit better. It should match, so this rolls down like that, so this one should roll down also, maybe slightly less. And here, because this fold is closer to me, it's out front, I'm erasing. You can see how this looks almost like white. This is the gray of my paper, so I haven't played my white stick at all yet. And I'm gonna kind of save it actually until the end, so that I can make sure that I'm using it appropriately. So here I can feel comfortable, because I know I'm using a white stick, I can feel comfortable erasing these light stripes that are closer to me all the way back to the gray paper. You can see I'm molding this kneaded eraser into a thin shape so that it's nice and thin. You don't want to just have a big blob that you go to town with. It's a little too, it's not precise enough. Lightening these up is going to push this stuff back into the shadow where it belongs. And I'm going to do that with a combination of eraser and white stick as I go. My eraser loses its point after a few seconds of using it. So I just use it for a second and then I reform it. Still aiming to get rid of lines. So where I see lines, like I see one here, I see one there, I'm gonna grow that out. It doesn't take much to get rid of a line, but you want this to read more as borders between these shapes of the stripes, rather than having hard lines everywhere describing things. I hope that makes sense, how these are, up here we've got borders of light versus dark, as opposed to a solid line. Like there's a solid line there. I'm gonna try and get rid of that and describe it some other way. So maybe this is, and all the way down here as well. This is what that might look like. Right, so there I've gotten rid of the lines somewhat. I'm gonna come in and do a little more darkening of the dark stripes, and then I'm gonna use my white stick so you can see what it's capable of. One thing I need to focus on is the edge of the fabric here. As I said before, you don't want it to tee off. Right now, I'm gonna try and shape these to make it feel like it's rolling around. My reference doesn't have it super strongly, but I'm going to play it up just a little bit so I can highlight the fact that this fabric is in fact kind of sweeping around the form of that fold. If all of my stripes agree that it's sweeping this way, then my eyes are going to just accept that that's what's happening. All right, right now the edge here, it's kind of like it's wobbling. I'm going to try and straighten things out because this is one fold going all the way down. I'm doing a little better over here, but over here the stripes are kind of getting out of alignment with each other. If my fabric needs to grow to get that to happen, so be it. Like, do those line up now? That's getting better. I'm just gonna move some of this NuPastel into the background in preparation for this fabric coming forwards with the white stick. Okay, so now I'm dealing with borders here, much more so than lines. This is what I'm gonna aim to do in the whole rest of the drawing. And I think for the purposes of this demonstration, we're just gonna look at this bottom quadrant, but you can imagine the whole rest of the drawing going this way. I'm gonna leave this dark back here. I'm gonna start using white stick here, and you'll see this start to have immediate strong effect. Don't be afraid. When you first put down light stick, it's pretty aggressive. Just work with it, work it into the drawing. Try not to smear it everywhere. You can smear the dark stick to really nice effect. If you start smearing the white stick in with the dark stick, it turns to mud and gross. So wait until you're about this stage and good and ready before you start adding white stick to your drawing. Be real careful with this stick. It's really easy to make a big mess with the white. Try and control yourself, try and tame this stick. Use your dark stripes as guidance on where to put this white stick. And I'm doing the same thing where stuff that's closer to me gets a lighter touch. So I'm reading, let's say this stripe's pretty even, but down here it starts to tuck back in the middle. So I'll probably leave that gray paper. Right now I'm pulling a little bit of white back out of the very edges, just because the black or the dark stripe darkens at that point, and I want the white stripe to do similar. Then I'm going to play up where it's lighter here and here on the dark stripe. I'm going to play that up in the light stripe. It's tempting to smear this white, and if you want to smear the white, you can. Just be careful. If I smear it with this blue hand of mine, it's gonna get grungy pretty quickly. So I'm gonna need to use a clean finger if I wanna work that into the page a little more. It doesn't take a lot with this NuPastel to really smudge things. In a way maybe that the Conte doesn't. The Conte is a little stickier maybe. Waxier, it doesn't smear as readily. Use this white stick to shape that stripe a little better. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. Hopefully that gives you an idea of where you can take this. It's important that you lay out the fabric forms like we did first. Describe the stripes once you're comfortable with the tension points and the flow of the folds and things. Lay out the stripes as observantly and carefully as you can. Fill those dark stripes in with dark NuPastel and try and eliminate the lines that you might see. Then go in and darken the stripes based on what's in front and what's behind as a general rule. So for instance, this deep pocket here, it's all rather dark NuPastel, and the white stripes are actually just my gray paper. And even that's a little bit light. I could just encourage a bit of NuPastel into those stripes and maybe tuck it back even further. The contrast of the white stick here to the gray paper there. So, sidetrack, this is what makes this feel correct, is my dark stripes here aren't full dark. When they go deep into the recess, they get full dark. My white stripes here are light, and when they go into the recess, they also darken. And it's both of those stripes darkening together in that recess that makes it feel recessed. So use that as a guide for what to do with your stripes. If it's out towards you, a little bit lighter with the dark stick, though it's still rather dark, and then that's the place to put your white stick. Think about your edges of your forms, make sure they're as clear as you can make them. These stripes aren't, I could still spend, a couple of hours making sure that all of these stripes are as consistent as they could be. These are actually kind of inconsistent, and it would be a good idea for me to come in and make them more consistent. So I guess that's a long way of saying there's always more time you can spend on it. Just don't be hasty. Be careful with the way you're laying values down. Okay, hopefully that gives you an idea of where you can take this drawing. You can see how much presence this has already. And we haven't started shading by light and shadow. It's just following that simple rule and using these sticks on toned paper. You can really get a lot of dimension out of it.